Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We've got, for those of you online, we've got about, I would say, a good 70 Sydney siders. We've got a few visitors from Melbourne. Hey, Minty, Robin, thank you for joining us. Very happy to be able to host this event tonight. Feel very lucky, especially in Sydney or in Australia in general, to be able to have those physical events again. So for all of you who don't have this chance, we feel for you. And hopefully you'll get some good insights, good vibe, and we really hope you'll be able to have this type of events wherever you are in the world, and one day visit us in the lucky country. So for those of you who've never been to events, we use interactive software called Zittings, made in Australia, recently, or actually not so recently, acquired by Canva, another Australian unicorn. And if you flash this QR code, what's going to happen is you'll be able to see exactly what's on the screen, and more importantly, you'll be able to vote. For some of the startups presenting tonight, give us insights, around your opinion on a few of the questions you're going to be talking about. So I'll leave the QR code on. Hopefully, for those of you online, Sophie will send you the URL in case you can't see the screen. And yeah, so use Zittings. It's good. It's made in Australia, and they've been supporting us for, since actually Startup and Angel exists, 2016. So now we're gonna apply, what we've this tool. You get a chance to tell us a bit about you, so we can get a sense of the profile in the room. Our events generally attract strong mix of probably with 60% of founders, entrepreneurs, to-be entrepreneurs, and welcome to the family. Investors, innovation-driven corporate executives, I would say. Number of experts, whether that's around tax incentive, fundraising, M&A, and the like. And we always have curious people also joining. I've seen for the first time the job title Lady of Leisure. So you will recognize yourself. She's not in the room. She's an online attendee, but I was laughing with the team. So hopefully you get some value as well out of the event today. And yeah, and today we've got 57% or 55% of the votants, entrepreneurs, investors, 13%, corporate, 17%, and visitors, participants, no international tourists, I suppose. Yeah, everyone registered for the COVID. And yeah, more importantly, what are you drinking tonight? We run this survey out of all our events worldwide. Today on the menu, we actually have iced tea, courtesy of Maison Routin, with Chloe here. And later on, for those of you in the room, you actually get a chance to do a vermouth degustation a bit later on. So, come and join Chloe at the end of the event if you want to try this French liqueur. Okay, in Australia, we're always strong on the beer, closely followed by wine, water, and for those of you who didn't know we had iced tea, it's here. Okay, so today I won't be with my co-founder, Axel. Axel is online. Enjoy your time with the family. And we won't have, in terms of introduction, so yeah, I'll just say, we love running those events. We can't do it without the support of a number of partners. Today we've got OVH Cloud coming from Melbourne. They've been a long-time supporter of us. So thank you so much for joining us tonight and for your support. OVH recently launched a startup program. We're going to be running a short video about their offering. But it's definitely like a European unicorn you want to follow and consider when looking at your options in the cloud. Just buying domain name when you start the beginning of your journey. We also have another partner of us joining us tonight, Black Nova Group. We have Darcy, one of the VC partner, saying a few words. And more importantly, we're here at ThankStream Labs, thanks to the amazing Anita. So Anita, tell us a few words about ThankStream Labs and what we're doing here tonight.
Thank you so much, Leo. Hi guys, thank you for joining us here today at ThankStream Labs. For those who don't know me, I think that's almost everyone in the room. My name is Anita Backham and I'm the head of events here at ThankStream Labs. We are a co-working space for tech startups with a global focus. So we were founded in 2012 by Tim Ford, who is also the CEO and co-founder of Airtasker. He just wanted a place for him and his entrepreneurial friends to work out of and to collaborate, and that's how ThankStream Labs was started back in 2012. So we currently have 3 offices across Australia, 2 in Sydney and 1 in Perth, and you're joining us today obviously at the Sydney Startup Hub office here, and we exist to support the growth and innovation of the startup ecosystem. Now, Startup and Angels, being Leo, we've done a lot of events with Leo, and we're so proud to be partnering with him again today. And we hope you enjoy your time here at ThankStream Labs. And I'll be behind the bar, so come grab beer and wines, and I'm sure you'll enjoy your night tonight. Thank you for coming.
Thanks so much for having us, Anita, for your support, and after our work, and just in terms of housekeeping, I hope you all registered, obviously with the COVID safe application. The bathroom are, your way kind of out just before the door, and in the unlikely event there's a fire, follow the green sign, and same thing, take you to a safe place outside. So a little bit, I think a lot of you are regular Startup and Angels. We've got a number of online members online. So I won't go too much about the story. What we've really changed over the last year is creating an online community where you can have your own profile, share some of your wins. We use an Australian SaaS to do that. It's called Ramen Life. So if some of you are already part of Ramen Life, you can just transfer your profile to a community. It's free. You get access to these events, with a discount, and you would be very, very surprised in terms of the quality of the profile, both from a founder, mentors, investors, and partners such as OVH Cloud, and the number of discounts you can get. So we'd encourage you, if you're not a member yet, to join the community and be active. That's also we pick the startup presenting at these events, and so tonight we'll have three new members presenting their project. Okay, a little bit about our company behind Startup and Angel Australian. So I'm the founder of Australian. Started in 2010. Really, all kind of core principle and core values all around human connection. So we probably 60% of our business now is around talent acquisition. We really focus on startup SMEs. We've got actually a client in the room at least, and that's his birthday. And that was our first recruit for Echo. Happy birthday, Sheldon. Happy birthday. I told you I would embarrass you. And he's also probably the tallest guy in the room, so don't miss an opportunity to wish him his birthday. So that's around talent acquisition, consulting. We also help a number of international startups scale up with their market entry in Australia, and more Australian startups with their growth in Asia Pacific or Europe. And events, we've got a couple of brands, Startup and Angels and B2B Rocks, our annual conference to be announced soon. So now that when we switch and we have a short video about OVH, OVH Cloud. Now I welcome Darcy. Darcy from Black Nova Venture Capital. Welcome, Darcy.
Thank you, Leo. We appreciate you putting this event on. I'm Darcy Norton from Black Nova Group. We're an early stage venture capitalist. We're focusing in the B2B SaaS space. And if we sort of want to describe a little bit better, it's boring stuff that services recession-proof things in business. So we're not frontier. We just want to invest in things that make real revenue. So it's been an interesting year. We were born of the COVID era, and I think it was a really interesting year as well, 2020, because I think there was a bit of a global consciousness waking up. And so we've seen a lot of people demanding from an investor perspective that people make an impact. And so we've added a 25% impact filter to our investment fund, which I think is really important. So thankful to see everyone in the room that's excited about making an impact in social entrepreneurship. We're interested in investing in those businesses. So you can come and find Jamie or myself or Thomas. We're all in the room and very pleased to sponsor the event.
Thank you. Thank you for your support. Let's have you. All right, so I skipped a little bit the agenda, but the program today is we'll have a panel discussion from an investment perspective, with definition of impact and various investment strategy from probably the investor side, and then we'll have three startup pitches, and yeah, so we're here for a good kind of hour of content. Enjoy, and you'll have to cope with me again as the moderator, because unfortunately Jess was feeling a little bit under the weather. So given the current context, we felt it was probably better that I would replace her. I didn't come with a wig, but Jess, feel better soon. And I'll call our panelists. So Mark Redding, head of the Atlassian Foundation. We have Jamie from Black Nova Group and Robin from Birchal. Welcome, Robin. Robin from Birchal. Okay, so I think, are we doing it with the mic? Without the mic, we can hear? We keep the mic. Okay, the mic. Okay, we're keeping the mic. Perfect. So, ladies first, we'll start with Jamie. Can you tell us about you and your journey? And we heard about Black Nova, but what's your role with Black Nova Group?
No problems. Thank you. Yeah, it's nice to see some females in the room. A couple more would be great. Yeah, so my role is I'm Vice President of Community and Operations at Black Nova Group, and my background is I've worked in corporate social responsibility, marketing, the ESG side of things, and then also within microfinance. But yeah, within Black Nova Group, we kind of focus on investing in B2B SaaS, as Darcy mentioned. I think I'm just going to repeat myself there, but yeah, we've got a social impact target that we're really trying to push for at the moment. So it's nice to see everyone in the room.
Great. Robin, you want to go?
Of course. So my name's Robin Holt. I head up the campaign management team at Birchal. And for anybody who doesn't know, Birchal is an equity crowdfunding platform, of which there are actually two people in the room who've done equity crowdfunding platforms. And I'm talking about Charbel from AllSaints and then AJ from Instagram. And we've actually hosted almost over 80 successful equity crowdfunding campaigns since 2018, collectively raising over $50 million for early stage startups, all kinds really. We can kind of get into a lot more detail when we talk about the kind of impact versus commercial aspect of companies.
Thank you so much. And yeah, we've been partnering with Birchal since Birchal exists actually. They've been a long-term supporter in Melbourne in particular. So thank you so much. Thank you, Matt and Alan, for your support. I know we have Mark.
Hi everyone, my name is Mark Reading. I'm the head of the Atlassian Foundation. I've spent my last 10 years focused on social impact. I've been at Atlassian for about 4.5 years. Prior to that, I spent 33 years at PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC. I was a partner there for 20-something years. My last 6 years at PwC, I was the Australian firm's corporate responsibility partner and on the global corporate responsibility board. So I'm the lucky bugger who gets to lead the team at Atlassian to drive impact. And I can tell you more about that a little later.
So fantastic. Welcome, the three of you. Very happy to have you. And Mark and I, we've been speaking for 1.5 years. As Mark is the ambassador for Pledge 1% in Australia, and we haven't met in 1.5 years. So good to see you physically. So maybe we'll start with what impact means, because that's we may all have our own definition of impact. So what does that mean for for you and and for your business or the companies you invest in?
Yeah, sure. So look, I mean, impact is such a huge driving factor. I think to give a bit of context and background, I moved here in 2018 from the UK, and I think coming from that investment market over to Australia, one of the biggest differences which I found was that businesses were much more focused on what impact they drove and how much they made a difference, because consumers were demanding it. And when it comes to raising funds and investment into a business, it absolutely drives what people want to resonate with and really be able to share a story. So for me, impact is all about whether or not a business is making a difference in the world rather than just operating to make money. And a lot of businesses, ever since I've really grown up, it's all about operating to make money. But when it comes to impact, it's really about what you can resonate with and what story you can drive. And I think for businesses, it's more important than ever that you have an impact goal.
Yeah, so impact for myself and also for Black Nova Group, we focus quite significantly on the kind of holistic approach that the United Nations focuses on, which is the 17 SDG goals, focusing towards 2030. And basically, it's about access to food, shelter, education, gender equality, climate action, and really focusing on what businesses can do and build within the DNA of their businesses to then kind of drive that forwards. And when we're looking to invest, it's the number one thing that we are looking for is just what is the founding team looking at to create that social impact whilst also driving a business that eventually is successful and grows and scales.
For me, when I think about impact, I think about positive, lasting change. Anything that produces positive, lasting change is something that I would consider as being impactful in a positive way, as opposed to negative impact. The Atlassian Foundation sort of focuses upon two areas in order to try and maximise the impact that we have. They are education. So we focus on educating disadvantaged youth around the world at scale. And the second thing is helping to bring out the best in business through specifically the Pledge 1% movement. So the Pledge 1% movement is a non-profit movement that was co-founded by Salesforce, ourselves, another software company called Rally that's subsequently been acquired by Computer Associates, and a US non-profit, the Tides Foundation. Essentially, the model is based upon the model that Scott and Mike put in place for Atlassian and Mark Benioff independently put in place for Salesforce, and that is that it encouraged business founders to pledge to use 1% of the equity in the company, the profits of the company, everybody's time, and the core product for good, whatever that might mean. So, you don't have to fund the Pledge 1% movement. It's not like the Pledge 1% movement expects you to use your funds in support of it. It's basically just a movement that inspires founders to say, yeah, we're going to bake social impact into the DNA of our business from the very beginning, and we'll focus on whatever it is that's most important to us. So they're the two areas in which we directly try and deliver and drive impact. Because we've now got a big asset base, I mean, the Atlassian Foundation has got, I don't know, somewhere between 220 and 250 million probably sitting in it these days. We've donated 50 million to date. We have a small portion of that asset base that is available for use in equity and debt and other securities that are impact investment focused. And so we also think about impact investments as well as impact through the donations.
Okay, great. Well done.
It's a small budget now.
To manage. So one of the questions we had is obviously, there's a push to invest in high impact companies. But other than creating a profitable business, what are some of the benefits, for us founders of incorporating impact into company's mission, vision, or values? Anyone wants to start with that? We talked about.
Yeah, go ahead.
Personally, I think there are huge business benefits, both in terms of the employee side of the business, in terms of attracting people who believe that the values of the business align with their own personal values, in terms of engaging employees. I know the fact that every Atlassian, for example, gets a week a year of paid time to volunteer is something that Atlassians hold very dearly and helps to sort of really drive engagement. There are many things that Atlassian help to drive engagement, but that's certainly one of them. But I also think it helps with customers. If you are clearly seen to be a business that is either a social enterprise or even a business that is not specifically a social enterprise, but is clearly playing its part to have a positive impact on the world, you'll genuinely get a much more positive response and reaction from customers and existing customers. All of that is subject to one caveat, and that caveat is the focus on social impact has to be authentic and not driven by a desire to create business benefits. I really passionately believe that if you are authentic, the business benefits sort of flow as a byproduct. If you try and do it for business benefits, our bullshit detectors pick that up pretty quickly, and people start to have a negative reaction. So be authentic, genuinely try and maximize the impact, and the business benefits sort of look after themselves.
I do agree with what Mark said, and also as the Gen Z and the millennials start to kind of flood the market as well from a B2B and a B2C perspective, it tends to really incorporate how not only the intention of the business and what the strategy of the business might be, but it's about the execution and how you represent that message as well. And I think that's something that as investors we really do look for.
Yeah, I could literally just say what these two said, but I think just to add to that, from a perspective of when somebody really resonates with a business and a story, they tell it because they think it makes them look cool, because they're really resonating with that business, they're resonating with the brand, and they want to get aligned with the mission. And from an employee perspective, it's such an integral part of, Atlassian, I'm sure you probably talk all night about the impact that Atlassian has, but as a business, if you're going out there and you're having an impact, it really does make hiring easier. It makes onboarding new customers easier. You go in and have conversations with big corporations who honestly have been the slower ones apart from Atlassian, which obviously is leading the way for a lot of these companies. But when I look at startups and how they really are leading the charge in impact and change, then those are the businesses which I get to work with, which really do try and drive that. And it's actually just, you have to have that focus as an individual startup in order to be able to try and get ahead and get out there and be heard without a big budget.
Fantastic. I'll just echo, some of the things we said. Like recently, actually at Fishburners a couple of weeks ago, I gave a talk about, how to attract, hire, and retain top talents for startups, especially early stage startups. And if you have like a clear mission and an authentic vision with an impact, that's your best marketing tool to attract people who believe and authentically believe. And then in terms of not necessarily a recruitment strategy, because as we said, it's your genuine vision. It's really gonna help you attract people as crazy as you who wants to change the world. And I say that in a safe place because I know if you came tonight, was also to be comforted in this huge journey you all have started or are considering to start. But definitely from a people's perspective, it's really true. And also, in terms of consumer perspective, I think we're going to be talking about some of the brands, we have some of the startup. There's always this kind of feel good element. You have as a consumer saying, okay, like I'm not just buying toilet paper, I'm also, doing something for the planet. So maybe on this theme, and from an investment perspective, and maybe a good question for you, Jamie, and then you, Robin, is like, is there a trade-off really between financial returns, in terms of investment decision making and impact, i.e., what about a company that don't intend to do any profit, and how do you deal with that?
So Jamie first.
So at risk of repeating ourselves from the previous question, there's definitely not a trade-off between revenue and obviously the culture side of things, but it is really important, just I guess reiteration of the culture within the business and making sure that everything is aligned. But yeah, I think we definitely respond. Do you want to?
Yeah, of course. Look, from an impact and commercial aspect, look, not-for-profits are obviously not eligible to raise funds for equity crowdfunding and release their equity. They're great businesses, and I love what they're doing and how they're operating. But when it comes to raising funds through something like equity crowdfunding, for instance, having an impact statement is just so important, so that people can really resonate with it. And like we've already said, we've kind of touched on that before, but I think from that perspective, if you don't have that in place, it makes it so much harder to raise funds, especially through something as public as equity crowdfunding, where people literally just talk about your business and then they'll talk about other businesses and go, well, actually, why would I use it? I mean, it's kind of doing the same thing. But if you've got an impact side of the business, which is really focused on what people can resonate with and how it's going to make a difference, then there's absolutely a benefit to it.
Yeah, there have been plenty of studies over the last 10 years or so that have actually shown that those companies that have got really strong ESG elements to them and are driving impact tend to actually outperform those companies that don't. Quite separately from that, when we're looking at impact investments as the Atlassian Foundation, we are actually willing to make a trade-off. We've set as a policy that we're willing to accept financial returns, risk-adjusted financial returns that are at least 80% of the returns that we would expect if we were looking at an identical investment opportunity that didn't have clear social impact. So we'd like to think that we don't have to forego any of that commercial return, but because we're genuinely committed to making sure we can find and invest in impact investments, we're willing to forego 20% of the return.
Right. And basically, we've got a number of entrepreneurs in the room. So for impact companies looking to invest or to attract investment, what would be some of the things they should do when they approach you?
I think for something like equity crowdfunding, which I'll refer to here, when a company comes to us, a lot of the time they have a lot in place about how they want to pitch themselves and what they want to do. For us, because you've got the benefit of having retail and wholesale investors and you can publicly market those offers, it's really important that a business actually spends the time kind of putting together a lot of content so people can really easily find out what their business is doing and how they're going about it. So I know this is kind of making it a bit more equity crowdfunding focused, but look, that's what it is, so it makes sense. But from that perspective, it is really important that the business just sits down and puts together a mission statement that is so easy to tell other people. And look, let's face it, we're all doing that through video content, and that's how people are discovering it. And so video is king. It's really important to just put together a simple, easy to share message. And we always encourage all founders who are raising funds through Birchal platform to do that well before they've done their equity crowdfunding raise.
And then I'll shift to VC. So as an early stage venture capital, we kind of focus predominantly on, we prefer warm introductions, but obviously we're always open to having those conversations at an early stage, usually around the pre-seed and seed mark, but earlier is also better. Starting those conversations early is great. And then obviously we go through a process of going through a pitch conversation or you presenting to us, and then we go through the stages of IC, investment committee, and then yeah, so we do our due diligence, but we try and act as fast as possible. We don't really like to leave people in the lurch. So yeah, starting those conversations early and getting through that process is really important for us.
We've got limited capacity for impact investment. We've got a total effectively budget allocated to it of about $4 billion, and we've probably invested a bit over half of that already. Because we've got limited resources, we have a preference for investing in impact investment funds. So, for example, we invested in the Giant Leap Fund quite some time ago. We recently invested in a thing called Tenacious Ventures, which is actually a VC fund, but it's focused upon impactful agribusiness initiatives. We have had a few direct investments as well, 3 equity investments and 1 debt. They have to be directly aligned to one of the 2 external facing pillars of our strategy. So our strategy has 3 pillars to it: educate, enlist, and energize. Educate is everything we're trying to do in the education space. Enlist is everything we're trying to do to enlist members of the Page 1% movement and support them. And then energize is more internally focused, creating energy, reducing friction so that Atlassians can make a difference in the world. Direct investments have to be education focused or businesses whose core business model is helping to empower other businesses to bake impact into their own operations. So if you're not in one of those 2 areas, unfortunately you're out of scope. But if you are in one of those 2 areas, if there's real impact and there's a good commercial case, then subject to our capacity, we're definitely interested.
Fantastic. And before we open the question to the floor and online attendees, maybe a final question from me is, what is the most inspiring kind of success story for you, most inspiring startup to date you've seen or invested in or been around or used as a consumer?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, when I came over here and fairly recently, we worked with a business called Atlassian, which I know a few people have heard of, but Atlassian, I think, is just an amazing story because of the fact that they really focused on everybody who's working in the business getting a living wage. So it lifted a lot of people out of poverty who are working in the industry. A lot of people know that the fast fashion industry has huge problems with paying everybody a fair wage, which obviously, for the likes of so many corporations, this is a massive, massive undertaking, and it really means changing their whole operation. So Atlassian, what the founders did was they went over and they pulled people out of human trafficking and actually got them jobs and really supported so many people who had families who were literally living on the streets and are now being able to build houses out of basically the money they were making to be able to sell some of those products. And we all live in a country whereby we're consumers and we can buy this stuff, and it makes it so easy because a lot of this stuff is consumer products which everybody wants, and so you can just make a really easy decision by buying a product which is, yes, a little bit more expensive, but it has a clear supply chain when everybody has been paid fairly and everybody has been looked after. So,
and they also have incredible collaborations with
yeah.
brands as well.
I didn't want to go into that.
Yeah, they've got. Yeah, I agree with that one. I'm quite biased. One of my favorite startups within the space at the moment is Path Zero. We actually invested in them at an early stage, and they went through they went through an accelerator program, launching only just last year, and they're already on version 3 at the moment. So it's been a really fun process watching them grow and scale. They're a carbon management platform that encourages businesses to offset their emissions, and they're targeting businesses towards that net zero target within climate action. So yeah, that's one it's one to look out for.
The business that most inspires me is actually a business that every single one of you has used. You probably don't realize you have, or you may realize you have, but every single person in this room has used it. It's Humanitics. For those of you who don't really know what Humanitics is, Humanitix is a ticketing platform run by a non-profit. Every single dollar of profit that Humanitix generates goes to support the education of disadvantaged youth around the world. And so it's a direct competitor to Eventbrite. It's going gangbusters. Josh and Adam, the two founders, are two of the most inspiring individuals you could ever meet. It's reached the point now where obviously COVID has really sort of gave a bad slug for a period of time, but even sort of with COVID in mind, it's reached the point where it's cash flow positive in Australia and will continue indefinitely in Australia. It's going gangbusters in New Zealand. Will soon be cash flow positive in New Zealand and is about to enter the US market, which will be huge. So it's relied upon philanthropy to give it the seed capital, if you like, to get it going. But it's like a flywheel. Once it reaches that point where it's grown to the point where it's cash flow positive, it just continues to get bigger. If it achieves its potential, if it becomes anything like the size of Eventbrite, it'll be spitting out a couple $100 million a year in profit. It is a non-profit, and therefore every single cent of that couple $100 million will be being used to help educate disadvantaged youth around the world. For me, it's an incredibly innovative and inspiring business in its own right. What's probably not fully appreciated right now is that Josh and Adam are proving that the model can work. And if it can work in ticketing, then it can work in hundreds of other industries and markets, insurance or whatever. So it's a really innovative way of truly bringing out the best in business.
Amazing.
Glad we made the switch to Humanitix.
Thank you. So we'll open the questions to the floor and the online attendees as well. Feel free to ask me. I'll repeat the question so we have it on record and for people who are not in the room.
Said that you accept the criteria 20% less. But you found that make up that 20% is better just eat that.
So the question was, we've said we accept 20% less as a commercial return when we're making an impact investment. Have we found we've made that up, or are we just basically eating it? Short answer is it's too early to tell. We started making impact investments probably about 2 years ago now. Given that they're all early stage ventures, it's too early to know exactly what sort of returns we get. My gut tells me that no, we won't actually be sacrificing anything.
So some reasoning around 20%.
Not really. It was more just a question of what's an acceptable level of trade-off in order to make sure that we didn't preclude an investment in a business that we really wanted to invest in just because it may not be generating the same returns as a business that was just purely focused on commercial outcomes. So it was a very conscious decision. We had to decide whether or not we were willing to take that trade-off. But for us, the impact was important enough to accept a 20% reduction. My gut tells me we won't actually finish up generating lower returns, but the proof of what's the same proof of the pudding will be in the eating.
Any other questions?
Just wanted to build a little bit on the last question, which is that is Atlassian therefore kind of the exception to the rule? Because my observation as a founder and trying to approach impact investors is to some extent it's a double whammy. You expect it to hit the same financial criteria and this is one of the few times I've heard that exception. So are you the exception or are there other people doing it?
The question is Atlassian an exception in accepting less commercial return when investing?
I'm sure the others can contribute as well. My instincts are we probably are, and that is because we are a philanthropic foundation. So we exist to maximise impact, and so doing whatever it takes to maximise impact is what we're all about. It's part of the raison d'etre for the foundation. I can't think of another organisation that has consciously chosen to accept less than a commercial return. They may exist, they probably exist, but could I name one? No. So yeah, in that sense, we probably are.
For us, as a early stage venture capital, we kind of focus predominantly on the founder first, and also obviously within our mandate, which is like for Black Nova, it's B2B SaaS. But if you're able to prove that you have that B2B SaaS projection, and also like as a business builds out that it is going to grow and scale, then yes, we will continue.
Yeah, look, I guess I can answer on this because we sit in the middle, because ultimately we're not the ones investing into the businesses that we're hosting. A lot of businesses will try and raise funds through the platform, and ultimately, you know, what their exit opportunity, their exit strategy is, it's going to be listed in the offer document, but a lot of companies might really just not be able to supply a return in the near future, and ultimately they might want impact investors or social investors who are investing just for the sheer fact that they want to own shares in that business. Ultimately, the aim should always be for the investor to get a return for the business founder, but a lot of the time businesses will post really the campaign on the platform, and it's really up to the investor to make the decision whether or not they want to invest into that business. So yeah, it's really up to them.
Okay, so maybe I would say something that Robin can't say, but like really more kind of from an investor's perspective, like personally, okay. Really, when I look at some of the opportunities on Birchal, I would invest because I love the project, not necessarily for the return, okay. And if there is a project with an impact, and I won't talk about necessarily the CB project, for example, you had, like I'm not necessarily looking to make a buck out of that. So as individuals, we have choice to make. Sometimes we give to donations, like Médecins Sans Frontières, some other great organization. I think with the rise of equity crowdfunding, it's not necessarily a donation because it's an investment, and you understand the risk that you want the project to go through, and back someone crazy enough to make it happen. Suzanne, you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, how important is it for early stage founders to be able to talk about the United Nations SDGs goals and what they're doing? Like, is that an important point when we talk about impact and measurement of impact? Are you looking to SDGs, or how are you, or is it just yeah, I'll just throw that to you.
Yeah, it doesn't really.
Do we focus specifically on how important
development goals?
Yeah, how important?
That 17 set by the United Nations.
Okay, so the question was, how important is it to focus on the sustainable development goals? So from a general rule, obviously it's quite, there's a lot. 17 is a lot to focus on. So as a general rule, focusing on 2 to 3, it is a good, it's an approach to messaging. So if you can say, these are the 3 that we're focusing on right now, this is how we're going to reach these goals, and these are the targets that we've set ourselves, that's one way to approach it. I wouldn't recommend saying that you're holistically focusing on just the ultimate goal.
I didn't mean all 17.
Yeah.
I meant that early stage founders have a story around the, that they're very clear about what SDGs they're focused on and where the impact is. Like, as you said, like they've got clear goals around, like, say, goal 5 or 5.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that one of the really important things I'll just speak from a venture capital perspective, is making sure that when you are approaching any venture capital, that they do have a social impact focus. And then if you're pitching to that specific investor, then mentioning those is very important, because it's obviously, it's the United Nations goals that I guess if you're focused on it, you will be setting yourself apart, because you have kind of gone around across the board.
I would generally recommend that if you're a founder of a business that is doing something that is aligned with one of those goals, that you embed that into your messaging and your communication. I think it only strengthens the messaging in relation to the business, and that will have benefits in terms of revenue, customers, capital raising, all sorts of things. So I would generally say it's a good idea. From our perspective, given that I said we sort of just focus on direct impact investments in 2 areas. One of those is education, which is SDG 4. So it has to be 100% SDG 4, or we won't look at it from that perspective. The other one for us, which is sort of bringing out the best of the business, to a degree, you could sort of say that aligns with SDG 17, which is all about partnerships. But generically, I'd say it's a good thing to be able to identify the degree of alignment and to communicate as clearly as you can.
To be honest with you, a lot of the businesses that we will work with will come to us and obviously have a capital requirement and what they're looking to do. It absolutely helps if they've got an impact side, as I've kind of mentioned from the beginning. It's so important to them. A lot of businesses that we're working with, and some of them are probably potentially a little bit earlier stage than some of the businesses that these ones are working with. And ultimately, yes, a reference could be made to that, but it's also really important for them to kind of be realistic about what they're doing as a business. So a lot of the time we're working for profit, for purpose businesses, which they're looking to obviously contribute to some of these factors, which are so important so they can resonate to their prospective customers or people who really want to talk about the business. But it really doesn't play in a huge factor for an equity crowdfunding campaign to be successful.
Okay, fantastic. So I think we need to wrap up, but thank you so much for your time, all your insights. You're sticking around for the drinks and for the pitches. Yep. Okay, so a big round of applause for Robin, enjoy your time in Sydney. Huh? You can see we're wearing masks all the time. Okay, so now we've got going back to some of the surveys. If you lost the link, it's zthings.com/B2B-Rocks, and there should be some QR code around the room. Have you already invested in impact businesses? No, hopefully that's going to change tonight. We've got 3 startups pitching. And next questions. I mean, we should have had the question before. I think no, I'm going to say yes. Do you think ESG considerations are taken seriously by companies? This time by companies. Okay. I think the big guys. Right. So 60+% think that companies, large companies, don't take ESG goals seriously. And as a founder, and obviously we would have some of you with a social mission, you think it's more challenging to raise for a social company or less challenging? Okay. All right. 50-50. All right, let's leave it there. Beautiful. So now we've got Mitwab joining us, traveling from Melbourne. Welcome, Mitwab from SoCoPreneur. Going first. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me now? All right. Thank you very much for this opportunity and good evening, everyone. I'm very pleased to be able to present to you my social enterprise SoCoPreneur. I set up SoCoPreneur to introduce utility terrain vehicles, UTVs for short, to introduce a tool in urban areas in Africa and developing countries, but we'll be starting with Ethiopia. Why? Well, 2 of the main challenges a lot of people in rural parts of Africa face are access to essential services and farming equipment, mechanized farming equipment, modern farming equipment. What do we exactly mean when we say access to essential services? We're talking about sort of things that in the global development trying to target access to education, healthcare, markets. And sorry, I keep forgetting. All right, okay. I should have done this earlier. As part of this project, of course, we've done a lot of studying. And what we have actually found out that there are primarily 3 reasons why this problem has not been tackled in a lot of developing countries as opposed to the developed world. The first one is poor road infrastructure. In particular, this is the case for Africa. And the main reason it's prominent for Africa as opposed to, say, Asia or other places is that the terrain is rugged and very difficult. What that means is that people cannot use the likes of bikes, motorbikes, or other intermediary transportation, such as tuk-tuks. The second one clearly is the low household income. People in rural areas everywhere across the world have challenged towards bad road infrastructure. However, they're sufficient, wealthy enough to be able to afford conventional vehicles. That is not the case here. The third one is the low demand for transportation, or the density, the population density. Again, that's a challenge because governments cannot provide sort of public transportation we enjoy in the developed world. We're talking about buses, etc. The second problem we're setting out to tackle is mechanization farming. So this is the sort of farming these people continue to do over generations and generations. This is the way their grandparents, great-grandparents have done it. Why hasn't this problem been solved over so many years? It's not very difficult to figure out. It is primarily because they are such a small folk. So when you travel across Africa, you do see tractors. In fact, you do see tractors sitting there. You turn around and ask questions, why aren't they going and farming for these people? But the back of envelope calculation shows you that the reason is the lands of these individuals is so small. Some of them have a hectare, half a hectare. If you're wealthy enough within that context, you would have 2 hectares. So what it means is that the petrol cost of getting that tractor to your farm in order to conduct the farming itself is too expensive, given what these people actually produce. So why do we think we can solve this problem? Very simple in a sense. A rich man's toy turning into a poor man's tool. So why do I believe utility terrain vehicles can do this? 4 reasons. 2 technical, 2 more a business aspect of it, or the economics of it. The technical part is this vehicle is specifically designed for rural off-road or rural regional areas. So what it means is that we don't really have to invest in tweaking, customizing, or doing anything that's technical with the vehicles. The second one is it's a proven technology. In particular, over a few years, the safety aspect of it, the performance have improved so much that you can just simply bring them from wherever they are, take them to those areas, and test them, and they run very well. And I have done that, and I've got video for to show you. The third point I have here is multi-purpose. This is actually very critical to what we're trying to do. I do not set up this company so that those individual people can all with these vehicles. I think that would be a disaster for our environment, given the massive number of people in these areas. I do not want the individual households to own them, but I would like rural entrepreneurs, in particular young people, to be able to have access to these vehicles so that they can provide those 2 services. I suspect most people in this room have traveled to developing countries, in particular Asia, and I assume that if you have done that, you've seen tuk-tuks. So what we have in mind is that the sort of tuk-tuk drivers, I would like them to be able to have access to one of these vehicles. And during the peak time, they would be able to go around, take their kids to school, mom to hospital, as well as to markets, etc. And during off-peak time, go get one of these implements, attach it at the back of the vehicle, to go around and do the farming activities. And also, it's quite possible that there's some form of construction activity happening around it. If that's the case, the back cargo box is such that you can tip. So it's a tipper, essentially. Go around and do those work performances, and then get some cash. The same thing with those ones. Those ones these are being used. That's in Israel. That's in the US. Being used in very difficult terrain to transport patients as well as rescue people. So essentially, what we've got here is a multi-purpose tool that can be used by young people to change the way they have lived in the past as well as their communities. The last point I have is cost-effective. So what makes UTVs a lot more ideal than any conventional vehicles is their cost aspect. And there are 3 elements to it. One is the purchasing of those vehicles, which is quite lumpy investment. In comparison to vehicles, even in Australia, we're talking about 20% of the cost of a half-decent vehicle. But also the running of this vehicle is relatively significantly cheaper in that a petrol, a fuel, if it's fuel or electric, would actually take you a longer mile as well. The maintenance and repair, which is extremely critical, especially when you're thinking about rural, remote areas where there are a lot of workshops and mechanic shops around. People who can fix, say, a motorbike would be able to do that. Because if you take back a few steps, the technology and the mechanics around this vehicle is actually related to motorbikes. All right, so what is the plan for us? The plan for us is to introduce the market, to go to the market with these 3 vehicles. This one is electric, so this is the future, but it's not ready yet for us. We've taken it to Ethiopia to test it. It only sits 2 people. So one of the objectives we have is to transport people, which is actually going to be a primary business for our potential clients. Unfortunately, with 2 people only, the economics of it is not there yet. That one is a game changer because it can fit about 4 to 5 people. And based on the estimate we've done, if you've got one of those ones for those businesses, to be able to turn around, you only need to transport about 20 people a day. That is without the farming activities and a few other businesses. That one is manufactured in the US. It used to be manufactured in Australia. They shut down. It's called Tomcar. That's more the higher end one. And price-wise is going to be quite expensive. But we're targeting those ones for the likes of governments, NGOs, etc. So when you're actually going to the market with vehicles, you cannot do it without the after-sales aspect of it, in particular the maintenance and the repair. For those ones, we have the business model we have is based on mobile mechanic services. So I'm a member of RACV. I assume most people, I don't know what it's called in New South Wales, but RACV, RSW probably. Right, okay. So that's the sort of business model we're planning to use. The second one, of course, is financing. Finance is extremely important because these people don't have the sort of capital. So we have the traditional financing as well as the sharing economy, which is car sharing and then subscription. Do we have market validation? Yes, we do. So tuk-tuks, you might have seen them overseas. In Ethiopia, they were introduced around 2007. By 2017, you can see how much they have increased. Market size. I don't know how many of you know this, but there are as many Ethiopians as there are Japanese. And even more, or 80% of Ethiopians, that's we're talking about 90 million people who live in rural and regional areas. So the market is simply huge. What have we done? Right, 3. First one was proof of concept, as I said earlier. We took 2 vectors to Ethiopia, electric and fuel. The fuel did everything we wanted it. The electric was a little bit challenging. Where are we at? We're currently thinking of getting around 10 vehicles to do the pilot project. And the plan is 2021 January, hopefully, we'll be able to launch the business. All right, I thought I'll just invite you. So this is a video clip, so you'll have to forgive me for the bad editing of what we've done in Ethiopia. You can see that you can take them to a deeper water, which is as part of the train. Unfortunately, we couldn't take them out in the areas because we don't have the permission to take the vehicles. And this is where we've tried to do the farming activity. As you can see, we were able to perform the level of farming exercise required. Okay, where are we at this point in time? We're looking for expression of interest for investors, but also we're working with business partners and innovators. There are a couple of electric vehicle technology companies we're discussing in Melbourne, and hopefully for us to transition from the fuel into electric base. That's it.
I don't know if we have time for more than one question. So if you've got a very smart and impactful question, it's the time.
You have to charge them for about 6 hours.
So the question was, what was the issue with the electric version of the vehicle?
It's the charging one. You have to charge them for 6 hours every day. And if you don't charge them, then they will go down flat. And then you have to wait for another 2 days to get them back. Yes, there were a couple of companies in Ethiopia that were interested in partnering with us, but the distance wasn't the issue. The issue was just more of those vehicles, in particular for this company. It could be just getting there. That's the challenge.
We said one question. Okay, so it has to be good.
How much are you trying to raise?
How much am I trying to raise?
How much do you need? How much money do you need?
I need around
Dream big, dream big.
3 million to start with. That's the target.
Okay, so if you've got 3 million, go and find Minty. Otherwise, register your interest and connect with her. Thank you for visiting from Melbourne. Enjoy your stay. Okay, so you get a chance to, so the answers won't be public, but you get a chance to, give some feedback to SoCoPreneur, on our presentation and your appetite for the startup. We'll have this slide after the 2 other pitches as well. It's a way to kind of give some anonymous feedback. You can be as honest as possible, and the best feedback you'll be able to give them, I think, will be at the drinks in about 20-25 minutes. If we stick with the schedule. All right, thank you so much for your vote and feedback. And now we've got Charbel from All Saints. Come on, Charbel.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. That was me. I'm Charbel from All Saints, just a slight typo, but that's cool. Where do I even start? I think I'll just start, don't I? So here we are. I've just given away the punchline. This is what we're doing. So effectively, I've started this company. I started working on it about 2 years ago, and really started this last August. Effectively, we're a food company, and what purpose will come in a second. I've been positioning us as effectively three pillars: food, content, and technology. And it's a very, very interesting model. This is no one was supposed to see this, but I figured why not today. So we're a purpose-driven company where 1% of our revenue goes towards supporting environmental organisations that are doing the good work. So our first partner is the James Goodall Institute of Australia. I met up with them last year, and so they're our very, very first partner. So we're doing modest revenue right now, but as we start to scale, it's going to be a really interesting thing. So talk about the 4 categories of what we are. We've got B's, B's and C's, and they're the critical environmental categories. And spent a lot of time developing a lot of really interesting content. And as we move through this, I'll talk more about how everything links together. So we're food, content, and collectibles. This would have been a really good video, but this is for a different presentation anyway. So I've got there's effectively 2 companies in here: Alt Saints, which is those were the Saints before, Alternative Saints, and this new one called Dino. It's aimed at children, and it's telling the same story. We just don't want our animals to become extinct. It's as simple as that. Now, the content part of it is we spent a lot of effort in getting the book stfrankie.com. So we've got about 400 of these cute little animals designed. These are the stories. And that's getting it. Did I just do something wrong? So I think I've hit something in there. So that's a product actually getting quite a lot of attention. So we've worked on this, and it's really well evolved. And I'll share some of the details that are going to take us on. And from a content perspective, we've got a lot of information, a lot of really meaningful content, really simple stories, non-dramatic, non-judgmental, but it's just a slight call to action to get people involved in the brand. And the collectible strategy is what we're going to start with. We've already started working on it, and we're going to launch it probably around September. And the collectibles is effectively NFTs. So we're looking at replacing the redundant wasteful toys with digital collectibles. So effectively what we've got is the products here. So we've got the cereals, and as a category, is a pretty massive category. It's largely under-innovated pretty much all around the world. So globally, it's about $54 billion as a product category. And in Australia, we're looking at $1.46 billion category. And again, there's not many new players. There's a lot of new players, but people who are not doing interesting things. The content, if you want to expand that, that's got we've got a map of our endangered animals geolocated around there, which is pretty interesting. And the collectibles is the interesting bit that we've got now. So we've got 400 endangered animals, and we've got a list of about 800 dinosaurs that we're working on. So we've got about 40 of them designed, and they're really cute. And so the model itself, we raised a bit of money last year through Birchal, and that was a really good campaign. That got us pretty much to where we are now. And our model is not about becoming a manufacturer. So we've got this amazing partner over in Rockdale who's producing all the food for us, and they've taken a pretty interesting role with the company. Sales and distribution, we're working with a third-party logistics provider. They're based in Preston, in New South Wales. And so they're going to take care of all that distribution, but supplementing it with 15 of the sales team. And we're working with a sales company now who's got like 50 people on the ground. We'll take care of our merchandising and in-store promotions. And the direct-to-customer is an interesting model as well. We've shipped about 300 orders in the last few months, which is pretty good. And we'll grow that. And we haven't put a lot of money into that sort of marketing because we haven't had much to market. But now that we're starting to put the whole thing together, we're going to ramp this up around Q3 this year. And the engagement model, really, the way I'm positioning is that you eat, you buy a great product, and the cereal packs have got a story on them. So we're talking about endangered animals. So there's a bit of education going into the product. And it's a superb product, if I might say so myself. The access to the digital platform, so far, frankly, it's available for anyone to look at. As we start to move into the NFT strategy, it's still going to be available to the public. But the collectability is that we're going to start dropping cards into these things, but also having cards available for people to buy anywhere in the world. And so those cards will unlock points which will get people into the NFT trading platform. And so what we're going to do in this space is, again, really quite interesting. So it's a really interesting space because we're going to give people the tools to be able to customize from a personality perspective. What we've got now confirmed is these stores are taking us on. We're still waiting to hear back from Go Vital Foodland. And Costco has hounded us twice now in the last 2 weeks because all they saw was an image, one of the earlier images of this, and they want to be stocking it. So that's a really interesting thing because when they order, they tend to order sort of 15 to 20 pallets at a time, which for me is just like, I was excited by that, 4 boxes for the first order. So it's a really interesting space where we're at. So it's really big. We've got another crowdfunding campaign going on with Birchal right now. You can scan the code if you want. So the whole thing is that the engagement model is big. So eat, burn, and collect, and eventually trade. So it's a really interesting space that we're playing in. And so much so, that Costco and Woolies have seen us outside of their normal sequence, which is really cool. A little bit scary, but it's kind of cool. And that's me. If you want to get in touch, it's still the same QR code for the campaign because that's what I'm about. So that is actually me wearing that hat. So there you go. So that's me, and thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Albert. So as the crowdfunding campaign started?
Yes.
When?
It started on Tuesday this week, and it's kicked off well. And Robbie's my campaign manager. And I recommend if you guys are looking for crowdsource funding, it is Birchal. That's the only choice.
Right. Any question for Shabel, Yuval, Candice?
I was just wondering if you thought about how
production as environmental friendly?
Yeah, we're trying, but there's so many problems to solve. You know, we were talking before about, or Robin was talking about Atlassian. There are so many problems to solve at every point, and one of the surprising things that I found in the food industry is how backwards it is. A lot of stuff is still paper-based, and it does my head in. But there are so many things that they could. My background is design and tech, so there's zero excuse for what they've done. So from a distribution perspective, it's really hard to work with providers. There's a few criteria that we've got, you know, good working conditions, etc., etc. But we're not trying to solve for it right now. Soon, I want to solve the whole thing, basically. Does that help? Yeah, sorry. We're trying to solve as much as we can. I'm just conscious of time because we've got like a few minutes for the next person. That's it. All right. Thank you.
So keep voting. Thank you so much. And, ask any question to Charmaine or Robin about the drinks. All right. 17 response. Good enough. All right, Gordon. Welcome. Welcome, co-founder. Good on you.
I've got to have my phone security button. I'm told I've got to make sure I project down here. Okay. All right. So there we go. So I have a very big question for all of you. Is life on Earth sustainable? This question was first came to prominence in the 70s, and in the 50 years since then, we as humanity have consumed as much stuff in that 50 years as the entire human race for the time we've been on the planet. And part of that's population growth, but as the Australian Academy of Science has said, it's the consumption patterns that are equal or more important to that unfolding disaster. So this is no doubt one of the reasons why the nations of the world have adopted the Sustainable Development Goals, and in particular, Sustainable Development Goal 12, to ensure sustainable systems of production and consumption. But we will not, as a species, achieve that goal unless consumers consume more sustainably, more often. Good evening. My name is Gordon Renouf, and that problem is exactly what Good On You is here to solve. Our vision is a world where it's as easy to know how a product or brand impacts on the things you care about as it is to know the price or the features of that product. Already, Good On You is recognised as the most robust and often cited system for rating fashion brands. And our vision is to move beyond that to many other categories of product. So the problem is twofold. For consumers, 50% more of us feel bad when we don't consume sustainably. But it's just too hard to understand which product is better and which product is worse, the things that you care about for sustainability issues. For retailers, the problem is that it's hard to know where to start. It's hard to know how to reach people. Greenwashing is an issue. I knew I did my security bracket. Sorry about that. So for consumers, although it's hard to know, we know that they care. They're acting already. Global fashion search platform List has reported a 75% increase in searches for sustainable fashion in a year. And Farfetch, a global affordable luxury platform that some people know, has reported that the positively conscious collection that they offer, which is, by the way, powered by Good On You data, has had twice as many sales as the platform as a whole over a period of time, recently over a year or so. And so it's a real problem, and consumers are paying attention. And brands are responding. It's hard to walk down a Sydney street without seeing an advertisement for a brand like H&M promoting their conscious collection. And a good on you, more than 100 brands each month approach us to be listed on the platform or to have their rating upgraded if they can. And these are brands from Gucci down to a two-person brand in Bondi and everything in between. So if you're a brand and you're ignoring sustainability, you risk a consumer backlash. We've seen that with brands like Boohoo in the UK. But for brands, it's quite hard to know what to do. It's quite hard to actually make a difference. Supply chains are very complex. Sustainability is a complex subject with many trade-offs. Information is fragmented. And perhaps most of all, consumers, as one of our investor friends said, consumers are wary of greenwashing. And so you've got to get it right. You've got to be authentic. So our solution, first for consumers, we help consumers find the brands and products that align with their values. We allow them to look up a brand and see if how it rates, look up their favourite brands to see how they rate. We help them discover alternative brands that are more sustainable but meet their needs. And we give them an opportunity to shop for sustainable fashion. For brands, we help them determine, for retailers rather, we help them determine which brands to stock if they want to be more sustainable. We help them credibly promote to their customers which brands in their collection are in fact sustainable. And we help them with data that helps them and their brands improve and become more sustainable. And this is all built on our robust rating system, a methodology that has been tested and with all sorts of NGOs and industry associations and experts, and one that uses our proprietary tech to make it more efficient. We look at up to 500 data points for each brand on 100 key sustainability performance indicators. And we turn that into a simple, easy to use 5-point scale. So it makes it very easy for consumers to know which brands are doing better. It's all very well telling you which brands are sustainable, but some of our retailer partners want to help their brand partners become more sustainable. So we are developing a tool that will help brands identify which sustainability options they should implement for the best return on investment to position themselves as more sustainable in that authentic way that we talked about earlier. So where are we now? No. Looks like I have to tell you about how we make money before I tell you where we are now. Sorry about that. So we make money in two ways. We connect more sustainable brands to the conscious consumer community. And we do that by charging them a monthly recurring fee and taking 10% of their sales. And then with larger multi-brand enterprise partners, they pay a recurring fee for licensing our data to power their conscious collections. So not working. So where are we now? That's what I was trying to talk about. So we have 3,000 brands rated already. We're heading for 10,000 this year. Our affiliate marketing revenue, our commission-based revenue has gone through the roof for the last year. 20% month-on-month growth from April through the end of the year in 2020, and the last 2 months an even higher rate of growth. We have nearly 1 million users using the platform each month now, and that's been growing quite nicely as well. And we've got 6-figure contracts with a few important retailers, including Farfetch, as I mentioned before, Afterpay, not a retailer, but a platform very interested in fashion retail, and My Best Brands, a German retailer. So what's next? We plan to scale with a key focus on improving our capacity to rate more brands. What our users want when they're not engaged, they want more brands rated. Corporate partners need more brand ratings. And after that, we will build even more engaging products than the ones we have now to bring our users back more frequently and build the foundation to build our partner base. Our impact is simple. We create incentives. Every time a retailer like Farfetch says to its 3,000 brands, if you want to be listed on our positively conscious collection, which is more likely to sell, you need to be rated highly by Good On You. That creates incentive for brands to get better, as does our growing platform. As I said before, we're getting 100 brands a month wanting to be listed and have a good rating on Good On You. So it's definitely incentive. So that creates incentive for brands to do better. And obviously when brands do better, they are more sustainable. We move closer to a circular economy. We move closer to a situation where fair labour is in the supply chain, and we move closer to a situation with minimal harm to animals. So the opportunity is very large. At the moment, we're just in fashion, but our user base wants us to move into beauty and cosmetics, also homewares pretty soon. Electronics is another sector which really works well with our model, sporting goods. So you can see that the same model can be exported to other sectors pretty easy. So that gives us a part of a $3.3 trillion market. And what we can say is that brands have a sustainability problem and they have a sustainability opportunity. And Good On You is ready to help brands take advantage of those opportunities and avoid those problems. So Good On You is, I said, widely recognised as the place for sustainable brand ratings. We've been talked about as that from the New York Times, not the New York Review of Books. I don't think we've got to there yet. The New York Times through to the Business of Fashion industry publication, endorsed by Emma Watson. Doesn't hurt gaining our customers. So where are we now? We have just recently closed an investment round, which is helping us fund a couple of new positions. So if you know people who'd be great for head of content, head of operations, we'd love to hear from you. We are, of course, having our eye on our next investment round. And so if you are thinking of getting on board, then we would love to talk to you. So thank you very much.
Well done. Great success story. We have questions. Good on you.
Everybody wants a drink.
No? So impressed. Well, thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you, everyone.
You had a great standing. You'll have the next on me as well. Thank you so much for joining, and thanks all for the feedback. So we're gonna wrap up shortly after this vote. All right. So before thanking all our partners, and so I don't forget, I would really want to thank my team. So especially Sophie. You know, a lot of you would have interacted with Sophie. So Sophie is at middle of the night in Guatemala. So thank you so much, Sophie, for helping put this event together. Florencia, amazing Florencia, doing everything. Pooja, Trish, Gianluca, Chloe, coming to help us tonight. So big thanks to my team. I hope I haven't forgotten anyone. Trish, can you stand, please? She's on Twitter. Yeah, we didn't mention that. Yeah, you'll find plenty of content on our social media. And obviously all our partners. So tonight, Black Nova Group, Thanks Streamlab, OVH Cloud, Pledge 1%, Birchal, France Square, and La French Tech. We've got Diane here from La French Tech. Thank you so much for making this event possible and for your support. Last quick survey. That's my new motto. No one leaves the room without giving us feedback. Good, bad, ugly. It helps. You can also tell us if it's 5 stars. In Australia, everyone is nice. It's 5 stars. In France, it would be 1. No. And networking opportunities. Hopefully, online you have a chance to chat, introduce yourself, and know that's really where the fun happens. You can connect in person. Don't wear your mask when drinking and speaking. Stay COVID safe. So thanks a lot for the feedback. And the last slide is going to be another QR code. We saw used to QR code now. It's actually the next date. So next date. So we're starting a bit of a roadshow. Next month we'll be in Adelaide at the end of the month. We'll be back to Melbourne on the 22nd of July, TBC, and then launching Brisbane. Exciting, always exciting launching a new city. Brisbane in August. We lost count of all the edition, but so today was the 19th edition in Sydney. Adelaide, that's going to be the 2nd. I will remember this one. And Melbourne, we should be around 10 or 11. So the Brisbane will be the launch. So if you know any good founders, startups, investors in Brisbane, refer them to the community. And that's the QR code to join the community if you're not a member yet. We'll send you've registered, so you get a thank you email tomorrow with the link to register. Thank you so much. That's it for me. You have enough of me. Enjoy the night. Thank you, our partners, for the drink, food, and speak to you soon.